Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to begin by welcoming members to our first Pension Fund Committee meeting at New Shire Hall. A couple of housekeeping points as we're all new to this building. Toilets are available in the corridor adjacent to this room. There's no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will make our way downstairs and out of the main entrance. The muster point is on the green opposite the main entrance. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and tweet during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place. The meeting room has been arranged to comply with public health guidance and COVID safety. On their advice, committee members and officers will remove their face coverings at the start of the meeting and replace them at the end. This is to minimise the number of hand-to-face contacts. However, could I ask everyone to wear masks when moving around the building? Thank you. So we have a couple of empty spaces at the moment, which I understand is down to travel, but Dawn, do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Murphy. We have Councillor Batchelor substituting, but he's caught in traffic at the moment, but should be joining us. We also have apologies from Councillor Schumann, which is a late one. He doesn't have a sub. We have apologies from Matthew Pink. We have Liz Brennan substituting. She'll be joining us remotely via Zoom. And I think we're still missing Councillor Bowden as well.
Thank you. Okay, does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest?
Yeah, John Walker. I'm a member of the pension fund. Son and daughter-in-law are both deferred members.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Councillor Andy Coles. I'm a beneficiary of a family pension.
Okay, thank you very much. No other interests? Thank you all. Okay, so agenda item number 2, we're being asked to approve the minutes of the Pension Fund Committee meeting on the 22nd of July 2021 as an accurate record. Can I ask if any member who does not agree with this proposal to raise their hands now? Okay, I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as an accurate record, so we will take that as carried unanimously. Thank you. Turning to the action log, do officers have any comments or updates?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Do members have any questions on the action log? Okay, thank you very much. We are asked to note the action log. Thank you. Item 3 is the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund Business Plan Update. And can I ask Joe Walton, Governance and Regulations Manager, to present this report? Oh, yeah, over there.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. Notes I have are confusing. Item 3 is the administration performance report. So I believe that is still Joe Walton to present that for us. Thank you. I'm sorry about the confusion.
Thank you. Just to run through this regular report, starting section 2, key performance indicators for the pension service during the period 1st of February 2021 to the 31st of July 2021. Appendix 1 details those performance indicators. As you can see, a large number of greens, a couple of red areas that were due to a volume increase during the time. We're assured that that will be back under control. So no further comments on those from me. Next section of the report is the receipt of employee and employer contributions for the period. We're looking at here is the 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of June 2021. And if you refer to appendix 3 on that report, which I can't find appendix 2, sorry, you can see that for a period of time between October 2020 and March 2021, we were receiving employer contributions on time from 100% of all employers. Now that has dropped slightly, but we're still in the 99% range, so that's still good. No problems there to report. And then next item in the report is breaches of the law. They are detailed in section 4.2. So no further comments from me on there unless any of the committee would like to ask any questions on that. That's pretty standard what we're reporting there over the period of time and previous reports. Next section is internal dispute resolution procedure cases. Again, I have nothing further to add to the report. I'm happy to take any questions in any of those ones raised there. And that is the end of the report. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Chair. Under 4.2, the non-material breaches, I just wondered for a newbie at this, what sort of impact does that have in terms of beneficiaries of the fund, from particularly the case that's mentioned about the employer failed to submit and that certain statutory deadlines weren't met?
Yeah, so on this particular item, if it's the second one down, one employer in the fund failed to submit their year-end submission by the statutory deadline. So we asked them to send in their year-end return by the 30th of April, and failure to do so puts pressure on us to complete the benefit statement exercise, which has to be done by the 31st of August. Otherwise, we have to report our failure there to the pensions regulator, or keep a note of it on our breach report if we could deem it immaterial, which we would have done in this instance. But the report doesn't actually say whether there was a late submission or late production of annual benefit statements in this case. So we would have produced the annual benefit statement. So the pressure there was on us as a fund to produce the benefit statements. And of course, that also leads on to the pension savings statements, which we have a statutory obligation to issue by the 6th of October each year. So that would have put further pressure on that process too. So really, we keep a note of that as a breach, because we have to, the pension regulator asks to keep that as a note, but in this instance, it hasn't caused any impact on the members.
Members, are there any other questions that anyone has at this stage? Could I just, referring to the SLAs, there's obviously one or two red in there on the SLAs, and I'm assuming that we've put in place all of the necessary actions now to bring ourselves back into a better position on those.
Yeah, I think the ones where they are around things like performance, obviously we do the best we can. There is, I'd say out of the teams, we've still got one team we're looking at quite closely in terms of performance, which we're trying to improve still. But there's a plan to deal with that. I think there is, I should flag, there is likely to be some reds next reporting period, because there was an outage and that hit some of our 5-day turnarounds. If we had a couple of days with no system on a 5-day turnaround, it did create pressure there. But in terms of the performance ones, we've certainly got plans in place for everything, and it will improve.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. It's obviously really good to hear that things are working well, because in general most of these are in a very, very good position. So thank you. Okay, are there any further questions? In which case we are asked to note the administration performance report. Okay, duly noted. Okay, we will now move on to item 4, which is the Cambridge Pension Fund Business Plan update this time. And if I could ask Mark Whitby, Head of Pensions, to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just draw out a few of the items where things are, particularly notable or have moved or changed since we drafted it. On page 25-26, which is around the investment consultancy contract, we've obviously concluded the procurement, with Mercer being the preferred supplier to be reappointed again as our investment consultant. We've actually run into a slight issue at the point of completing the order form. It's a framework agreement, so it's simply an order form that forms the contract along with the terms and conditions. And this is around, due to the value, the legal advice is that actually we need Mercer to get some very senior directors to sign it off. So it's created a very short delay, which has caused us to have a very short extension to the existing contract. So we envisaged, I think, when we drafted this, that everything would be in place. So that's been agreed with the Section 151 officer. The extension's put in place, and as soon as we can get the right sign off at Mercer, the new contract will be effective. The next one is on page 28, which is around the business continuity plan. One of the reasons there was a delay was because obviously with West Northamptonshire Council being a new entity, they needed to, what we wanted to do was obviously have our revised business continuity plan on the appropriate template. And they've now produced that. We've done quite a bit of work over the last few weeks to start to put our old business continuity plan into that new template. It does sort of focus on different scenarios, like, interestingly, a fuel shortage for 72 hours, very, very topical. Outages of, in terms of IT, loss of staff, loss of premises, all those, those expected things. So we're just documenting at the moment. It's going through a bit of internal checking before we take it further. So pleased with some progress around that, which is obviously very important. Just one other business activity I'll bring your attention to, which is on page 30, McLeod. So this is the age discrimination remedy. When the new pension scheme came in, there was protection for people near retirement age, but not others. This is expanding that protection. We've actually now, for the majority of our scheme employers, sent off a template asking them for data, any data that's missing, so we can put it onto our system. So that's actually now in progress, which is an important step prior to us actually rectifying the records probably next year or the year after. And the only other thing I'll mention is just on the financials on page, I think it's page 43. What you'll notice in terms of the variance on the admin expenses is fairly modest compared to the budget at about 43k. I'd open it up to any questions.
Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering whether the imminent arrival of the end of furlough and the potential impact in terms of unemployment, whether that had been thought through about what that impact might be in terms of the way that the administration of the pension fund works.
Yeah, I mean, we were in discussion with employers who whether we felt they would be in trouble or were in trouble during over the last year and a half, let's say. It would tend to be impacting only smaller bodies, and we've been in dialogue with some of those. So I'm not aware of any that are, and none have not been able to pay the pension contributions for any sustained period. There have been a few hiccups in both this fund, I think, and the Northamptonshire Fund, but fairly modest. But it's not going to materially impact the majority of employers in the fund, who are obviously local authorities or academies or education establishments. But yeah, I mean, obviously what we don't want is obviously a failure of any scheme employer.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. On that basis, the committee is asked to note the business plan update to 31st of July 2021. Duly noted, thank you. Okay, so next is item 5, which is the governance and compliance report. Can I ask Jo Walton to present this report, please?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just run through a couple of items in the body of the report and then talk a bit more about the training opportunities. So the first item is the Pension Regulators Governance Administration Survey for 2020-21. This is a survey that's conducted every year by the Pensions Regulator. It's voluntary and anonymous, and public sector pension schemes are asked to answer a series of questions regarding governance and administration, and which involves 6 areas of 6 main processes regarding the administration and governance of the scheme. The report's been compiled by the Pensions Regulator, all very positive improvements across the board in all areas of the 6 processes that they focus on. This year, there was more focus on matters around risk management processes and cyber controls. There's a report obviously coming up on that later. And governance, the overall feeling by the Pensions Regulator that was even during the pandemic, governance really wasn't affected the performance of any of these funds, so that's good news. The full details of that survey can be found in the link in the report in section 2.5. The next item concerns the single code of practice that has been up for consultation by the Pensions Regulator. It was due to come into force in November, and we would have 6 months to comply with any changes within the code of practice. That would mean amending processes and making sure the reporting requirements we were still adhering to those. The new consultation the new code of practice has caused a bit of concern in the industry because they've combined 15 codes of practice into one. The LGPS and public sector pension schemes had their own code of practice, number 14. That's now mixed up into the whole code of practice, and it's been a bit difficult to decipher what relates to the LGPS and what doesn't. The Pensions Regulator had a very detailed consultation response with specific questions, and it appears as though they've received more responses than that they can actually cope with. So there's now a delay in the issuance of the code of practice coming into force. It's now not expected to be in force until spring 2022. And then we will have 6 months to become compliant with it after that point. So there's an activity in the business plan which has been adjusted in accordance to that. The Scheme Advisory Board have issued their annual report for 2020. This is where they combine all LGPS funds annual reports into one and given some high level figures covering LGPS as a whole. That's detailed in 4.1. Then I want to go on to the training. Some of you will have already undertaken the Aon summer series of training sessions that have been running across the summer. I think the last one was last week. They are available to watch retrospectively, not in live stream, via links that you may have been issued. If you haven't received the links or would need reminding of them, I can get that information to you. Aon can issue that direct to you. And I'll probably just do that for everybody just in case people haven't completed the training. But those links are going to be live until the end of December, possibly a bit longer, but we're hoping that everyone will be able to complete the training by the 31st of December, if at all possible. But if there's any problems in meeting that deadline, if you could let Michelle and I know, and then we can arrange with Aon for the links to be maintained for a little bit longer. But that training session is, those training sessions are really key to the skills and knowledge policy that we will be revising very shortly, and what's needed to carry out your role as members of the pension committee. Other than that, we've got a few highlighted training sessions, external events in December 21 and May 22 on the Appendix 1. So if anybody's interested in taking any training of those two items of training, if you can let us know, but we'll also circulate them for interest as well. That's the end of the report, so happy to take any questions.
Members, are there any questions on the report? Okay, I'd like to thank you for that report. Just a couple of questions from me, or statements from me actually. Question on single code of practice. Obviously, the changes that by it not coming in when it was expected to come in, is that going to have any impact on yourselves and the rollout of that? And
From my perspective, the delay is quite helpful, given all our other commitments, but no, it won't cause, we are compliant with the current code of practice, and that's what matters. So like I say, I have to, once it's become live in the spring, which could be, March to June, we will have 6 months from that to understand the changes, what the final changes are, and then implement them. But the committee will be kept up to date with what that means.
That's good.
We'll have an action plan accordingly.
Thank you. And the other point is just to emphasize the point I think that you emphasized several times there, the training is actually really important, and it would be good to think that we all manage to get all the training done. So if I could encourage everyone to look out for that email and make sure that you've done all the training that's available. Thank you. Okay, are there no other questions on the report? In which case we're asked to note the content of the report. Okay, thank you. Item 6 is the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund Admission Bodies Scheme Employers and Bulk Transfer Policy. Quite a nice little thing, and I think that Mark is going to take this item for us.
Thank you. Yes, we have a snappy name, isn't it? This, I guess, putting this policy into context, the main strategies for the fund, the investment strategy, the funding strategy, the administration strategy. This one's actually something which we voluntarily put in place. So it enables, any employer or potential employer who's in the scheme or looking to exit, and they'll know exactly how we treat them. The reason it's coming to you is set out in section 2.1. So there's sort of a number of things have changed around the policy, such as our objectives, but principally there's been a legislation change with regards to dealing with sort of employer contributions, but particularly employers who are looking to exit and the options we have when they are exiting. And you may recall that those changes were brought through and put into our funding strategy statement fairly recently, which then went through a consultation process. So this really is actually putting these into this voluntary policy that we have in place. And I think that the changes are fairly well laid out in highlight form in those bullets in section 2.1, but then in the draft of the policy itself. So really I have nothing further to add than that, but I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Members, over to you. Any questions about this policy? Nothing at all? Okay. In which case, the committee is asked to agree the recommendations as set out on page 107 of the report. Have I jumped the wrong place? Yes, I have. The committee is being asked to approve the amendments to the admission body scheme, employers and bulk transfer policy. Are we happy with that? Okay. So approved unanimously, thank you. Right, now let's move to item 7, which is the employers admission and cesations report. And if I can ask Mark to present that again.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, this is obviously the standard report that notifies you anyone joining or exiting the scheme. It's particularly straightforward, this committee cycle. Nothing really particularly to add. I mean, not in terms of the cessations, you'll note if you read through them, they all the pension risk is not going on. Sorry, not looking to have a exit deficit payment from anybody. The risk are all being absorbed by other bodies, where be that the local authority letting the contract or the educational establishment's concerned. So I don't really have anything to add other than just invite any further questions.
Members, over to you on this. Nothing you wish to add? Okay, in which case we are being asked to approve the recommendation, which is on page 107, to note the admission of the following admitted bodies to the fund, and they are listed there, and note the cessation of other bodies. And are we content to do that? Okay, once again, I believe that is a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to item 8, which is the exclusion of press and public. The committee is asked to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following 2 items contain exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed.